Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a truly dense and complex stack of sources today. All of it is centered on Nakamout's chief of police, Nash Morgan.
Hmm.
And our mission here really is to track his professional crisis, his agonizing personal transformation after a near-fatal shooting, and of course the relentless, often clandestine pursuit of his attacker, Duncan Hugo.
The material we're working with for this deep dive is just exceptional because it refuses to separate the professional procedural from the personal trauma.
Right, they're completely tangled.
Exactly. It's a totally interwoven account. We're looking at a major criminal investigation, yes, but at the same time, we're dissecting the immediate psychological toll.
You mean the crippling memory loss, the panic attacks?
All of it. And how that chaos is just amplified by the sudden arrival of this highly skilled, very secretive investigator, Lena Solovita, whose motivations are, far from transparent at the start.
And what truly hooks you, the listener, is this theme of finding a second life in the aftermath of tragedy.
Yeah.
This story is an intricate study in radical trust. It explores just how much you have to reveal about your own brokenness to heal, and how these huge, high-stakes cases, we're talking organized crime, federal agents, local corruption, can ultimately hinge on the smallest, most overlooked details.
You're not kidding. Like a dog stuck in a drain pipe.
A dog in a drain pipe, a very specific brand of gas station candy, and a busted gaming console. I mean, tiny little things.
Which is why we're calling this deep dive Operation Tiny Little Embers.
A perfect title.
It really is, because every single major plot movement, every breakthrough, is sparked by something that seems totally minor at first. We really need to get into the detail on how these tiny embers just ignite the whole situation.
Absolutely. So let's start where the journey begins, with the man who barely survived.
So we're introduced to Nash Morgan in a truly dark place. I mean, the source material paints this picture of a man who has completely lost his moorings.
He has. It describes his whole post-trauma existence as this profound sense of empty numbness, a real shattering of his identity. He sees himself as a shadow of the man he was. That's a direct quote.
And this isn't just, a metaphor for depression. The sources are very specific. They define his state as a trifecta of physical wounds, memory loss, and the empty numbness.
We have to analyze those three things, right?
We do, individually, to really get his vulnerability. So the physical wounds are severe, 2 major bullet wounds, 1 in the shoulder, 1 in the torso.
So even just basic movement protests the pain.
Right. And his coping mechanism for that is, it's denial.
Which is where the lying comes in. He's telling everyone he's going to physical therapy, to PT, but he's not.
Nope. He's creating this facade that he has business to attend to somewhere else, just to avoid the grueling emotional labor of actually recovering.
That avoidance is so critical to his character at this point.
It is. He's trying to maintain this outward appearance of control, of capability, because that's so central to his identity as the chief of police.
But by lying about PT, he's basically ensuring his physical healing just stagnates.
And that reinforces his psychological belief that he's fundamentally broken. It's this vicious cycle of avoiding vulnerability.
And it spills over. The psychological manifestations are immediate and severe, and they spill right onto his staff.
Oh, absolutely. The sources detail him feeling harsh, irritable, volatile. He's constantly having to smooth things over with these little gestures.
Buying coffee, donuts.
And after one particularly bad loss of temper over the thermostat, of all things, he brings in the obligatory gas station candy bars.
That constant apologizing with stuff, with food, it just shows he can't articulate what's going on inside.
He can't. He can't say, I'm irritable because my panic attacks are crippling me and I can't remember who shot me. So instead, he just defaults to the classic cop boss solution.
Buy them something sweet and assume the debt is paid.
Exactly.
The core internal conflict, though, is the memory. He's trying so hard to blank his mind, to just focus on the mundane tasks of his job.
But those attempts are constantly undercut by these haunting memories, these fragments of the shooting.
And here we find that essential symbolic detail that really locks the entire case. The sound.
Yes, the sound. He keeps hearing the echo of this unidentified sound. It's chillingly described as being between a sizzle and a crunch.
It haunts his dreams, his waking moments, and he knows intuitively that this sensory data is both important and dire.
He knows the true perpetrator is hidden somewhere in that sound, a sound his brain just won't let him access.
It's the ultimate psychological block. He's hunting the shooter, but the memory is locked away.
And when that block starts to give way, or when the stress builds too much, we see the physical result. the debilitating panic attacks.
The descriptions are so visceral.
They are. The source is clear. His legs giving out, crashing into walls, sliding down to the cold tile, and him just repeating this mantra over and over.
For real, it's not fucking real.
He, the trained officer, the man drilled to operate on instinct and composure, is completely unprepared for this.
The source notes that. All the training for armed combat, for pursuit, for de-escalation, none of it prepared him for this profound loss of self-control.
It really underscores that trauma is this professional hazard that police training, at least in this case, offers no adequate defense for.
And it's right into this deep personal vulnerability that the federal government walks.
They literally walk right into his office.
Yeah.
2 agents, Special Agent Sonal Idler, described as steely and looking like she ate procedures for breakfast.
Yeah. And Deputy U.S. Marshal Nolan Graham.
And the description of Graham is immediately loaded, isn't it? He has a smug mustache and just looked like he blamed Nash for getting shot.
So Nash is instantly on the defensive. He's sensing judgment, not assistance.
And their stated interest is finding Duncan Hugo. But Nash, he's a good cop. He realizes their agenda is way more intrusive.
They're there to exploit his memory gaps.
Exactly. To pressure him about the personal details he might know from the shooting. They see him as a witness, not a victim who needs help.
Graham, the smug marshal, is particularly antagonistic. He openly criticizes Nash, questions his competence. He says, "You're the one who got himself shot. You're lucky you're still here."
Which is just a completely untherapeutic approach. It's designed purely to provoke a response, to rattle him.
But Nash's reaction isn't just anger. He immediately focuses on his core duty.
He does. He pushes back against their priorities. He points out the gross hypocrisy of their focus when his brother's fiancée, Naomi, and his niece, Wale, who are literally kidnapped by Hugo, aren't getting any protection.
This is Nash finding the last little embers of his professional purpose, right? Protecting his family, even when he's completely fractured.
In this jurisdictional conflict, it immediately signals that this whole investigation is not what it seems.
The involvement of a U.S. Marshal specifically, that tells us we're moving away from a local small-time criminal like Duncan.
It's a huge tell. Marshal Graham's presence strongly suggests the feds are actually after Daddy Anthony Hugo.
The crime lord.
The crime lord. Anthony Hugo's territory spans D.C. and Baltimore. We're talking large-scale organized crime, racketeering, drugs, sex trafficking.
So in the context of this massive criminal empire, Duncan Hugo, the guy who shot Nash, he's small change.
He's a liability. The feds see the knock-him-out shooting not as a local incident of police violence, but as a potential crack in this massive multi-state criminal infrastructure.
They're pressuring Nash to remember details that might, inadvertently give them the leverage they need to take down Anthony Hugo's entire operation.
Nash isn't a patient to them. He's a piece of evidence.
And that elevates the stakes dramatically. If the feds are really after Anthony, then Duncan becomes less of a target and more of a terrified, loose cannon liability.
A loose end. And that realization immediately informs everything Nash does moving forward.
Now, let's bring in the other key player who injects just massive chaos into Nash's already fracturing life, Angelina Solovita, Lena.
She arrives as a total disruption. Initially, she's introduced as Knox's college ex-girlfriend from, a lifetime ago.
And she's immediately established as confident, certainly a looker, and just fundamentally allergic to commitment.
She's a free spirit by design. She loves good times, thrives on the thrill of the chase, solving puzzles.
Yeah.
But, and this is crucial, she solves them before moving on.
The source is really clear that she views commitment as a potential prison.
A phrase that reflects a very deep-seated fear we're going to get into.
So she has this plausible cover story at first. She says she's an investigator for a company called Pritzker.
Right, a company that insures assets for extremely wealthy clients. She runs parallel investigations with law enforcement to recover stolen assets.
And she calls the job boring, just mentions it in passing.
We should probably pause here and define the Pritzker mandate, because it's so central to the conflict.
Good idea.
A private asset recovery firm like Pritzker, they deal in high-value, often unique items, art, vintage cars, jewelry. But they aren't constrained by jurisdictional issues. They don't have to worry about Miranda rights.
So when she says parallel investigation,
it means she's motivated purely by recovery, not by justice or due process. And that puts Lena instantly at odds with Nash's professional code.
And her real specific mission ties her directly into this whole criminal underworld. She's hunting a priceless stolen asset.
A 1948 Porsche 356 convertible.
Which was taken just a few days before Nash was shot.
The timing is everything. because that car was almost certainly stolen by associates of Duncan Hugo, or maybe even by Hugo himself. So the hunt for the Porsche is the hook that brings her to Knockabout.
It requires her to dig into all of Hugo's activities, so her focus isn't on Nash, not at first, but her mission requires her to be geographically and professionally very close to the police investigation.
And to do that, she needs to be close to the source of that investigation, Nash himself. So after this horrifying stay at a local motel.
Oh, the description is memorable. A rat get into a slap fight with a roach the size of a rat.
Right. So after that, she moves into the vacant apartment right next door to Nash's, apartment 2B, which happens to be owned by Knox.
This physical proximity is just absolutely crucial for the whole plot. It immediately establishes this tension, this attraction.
Nash, even with his pain and his emotional withdrawal, he can't help but notice her shapely ass. And he comments on her strained cardiovascular endurance as she's hauling her luggage up the stairs.
But that closeness also gives Lena this immediate, unfiltered insight into Nash's internal decline.
Yeah, she walks into his apartment and finds it's a mess. Cluttered, dirty dishes, old to-go containers, and at least 4 dead flower arrangements.
The dead flowers are such a perfect telling detail.
They really are. They symbolize his stalled life, right? The things he started, like recovery, but failed to maintain. It immediately confirms her suspicion that his wounds run much deeper than the bullet holes.
And she sees he's sleeping on the couch.
Which is often a huge sign of unresolved anxiety, an inability to rest in a space that should be for comfort or partnership.
But what's so fascinating is that while Lena is busy assessing Nash's fragility, she eventually reveals the source of her own knowledge about panic attacks.
It's her own vulnerability. She experienced cardiac arrest at 15 on a soccer field. Her coach had to revive her.
And this is her central defining trauma. It completely altered her life's trajectory. She missed out on all the normal teenage stuff, no dances, no casual dating.
Because she was enduring surgery after surgery. And, more importantly, she was constantly being micromanaged by her overprotective parents.
Well, the source says they watched her essentially die.
And that experience created this deeply ingrained fear. They felt they had the right to tell her what to do, how to live, what risks she could take.
And she still experiences the physical echoes of that trauma.
Yes, the PVCs, the premature ventricular contractions, basically harmless heart flutters, but they happen when she's stressed.
So they're a physiological reminder of the moment her heart stopped.
It's a brilliant narrative symmetry, isn't it? Nash's panic attacks are a psychological manifestation of his trauma, a loss of control triggered by that sound he can't place.
And Lena's fear of commitment is physiologically rooted in a heart that literally failed her and the parental control that followed.
Her heart flutters are the physical anchor for her belief that every single relationship is a potential prison.
And this high-stakes, deeply emotional tension is almost immediately compromised by the absolute absurdity of small-town life.
The infamous doggy-style rescue.
Of Piper, the dog, from a storm drain pipe. I mean, you can't make this up.
You can't. And Nash, who's already dealing with federal scrutiny and his own internal decay, is reduced to pulling Lena out of a storm drain by her hips.
He's already worried about how he's going to write up the incident report to maintain his professional dignity.
And, of course, dignity is instantly lost. Naomi's best friend, Stefan Liao, sees the whole thing.
And reports back, confirming all the local gossip. The quote is fantastic. It looked like I was mounting the woman on the side of the road.
He even jokes they didn't need help with their dry humping.
This incident immediately establishes their relationship status in the town's mind, which is the exact opposite of what Lena's cover requires.
Her professional facade is just shattered by this domestic farce.
And before they can even process that, Marshall Graham pops up again.
Not just to irritate Nash, but to specifically complicate Lena's cover as an operative. He shows up at the library and reveals his past connection to her.
A sweaty, naked 48-hour fling in a motel in Memphis 5 or 6 years ago.
But it wasn't just a random hookup, was it? Nash, using his cop instincts, immediately connects that fling to a previous Pritzker asset recovery case.
So this confirms his deepest suspicion. Lena is an operative. She's not just some casual college friend visiting.
The man whose job it is to hunt down criminals suddenly realizes the attractive woman living next door, the one who's somehow healing his deepest wounds, is running a clandestine mission parallel to his own.
And that revelation just fuels his growing, very complicated anger. It moves beyond simple attraction and duty and into the dangerous territory of trust.
Which is the one thing Nash cannot afford to give away right now.
So the investigation into Duncan Hugo is now proceeding on 3 separate tracks.
Right, you've got Nash's official police inquiry, the federal pursuit of the bigger fish, Anthony Hugo, and then Lena's parallel asset retrieval mission.
And it's Lena's clandestine activities that provide the most crucial early intelligence.
She uses her Pritzker cover perfectly. She visits Tina Whit-Naomi's twin sister and Hugo's accomplice in jail 3 times.
Pritzker gives her a totally believable reason to be there. She's just chasing down stolen goods, specifically that 1948 Porsche.
And Tina, who's motivated by her own broken relationship with Duncan, she finally starts talking.
She reveals that Duncan Hugo wasn't some master criminal. His primary obsession was just gaining the approval of his crime lord father, Anthony Hugo.
Yeah, Tina says his usual crimes were limited to things like stolen electronics and cars. So the kidnapping and attempted murder, that was a major, major escalation for him.
It gives us the psychological context for his actions, right? He's performing. He's trying to prove himself to this terrifying figure.
And Tina confirms the high stakes. She says Anthony Hugo is probably hunting Duncan himself to clean up the mess.
She believes Anthony would put a couple of bullets in Dunk's head after he fucked up that hit, the shooting of Nash. She describes Anthony as downright scary compared to Duncan's impulsive idiocy.
This detail is so critical for Nash. It means Duncan is desperate and cornered, which makes him way more dangerous. If your own father wants you dead, you have absolutely nothing to lose.
And Lena's visits pay off with more concrete intelligence about Duncan's network.
She learns about his key associates. Face tattoo guy, chubby goatee guy, and operationally the most crucial one, burner-phone guy.
The one who helped Hugo flee the scene after the shooting.
And then the lead for her own primary mission. Tina gives her the location of the stolen Porsche, mentioning that Duncan stashed it somewhere within an hour of that original shop location.
So Lena's mission is actually nearing completion, even as the criminal investigation is just spiraling outward.
We see the full scope of that spiral when Knox and Nash meet with their associates. They meet with Grimm, who's the president of a motorcycle club, and Lucien Rollins, the political consultant.
This meeting really brings the whole organized crime hierarchy into full view.
He does, and Grimm confirms the entire situation. He reveals that Duncan Hugo is likely feeding information to the feds about his father's operation.
So that's why the federal agents are so invested.
Exactly. Duncan isn't turning himself in out of guilt. He's trying to position himself to step into Anthony's shoes once his father's locked up. He wants to inherit the criminal throne.
This revelation clarifies the federal motivation, but it also heightens the threat against Nash.
Immensely. If Duncan is cooperating, he needs to eliminate all the loose ends, the witnesses who can implicate him.
And Grimm warns them explicitly. The loose ends include Nash, Naomi, and Vale.
The, quote, Grimm delivers is just chilling. Awful hard to build a case if none of the witnesses can talk.
So Nash is no longer just hunting a single shooter. He is fighting a calculated elimination threat, all driven by this organized crime succession plot.
And while he's battling these massive external threats, he's forced to confront the serious internal decay within his own department.
This is a really crucial element. It shows the real-world cost of his withdrawal.
Sergeant Grave informs him about a pattern of abuse by Officer Tate Dilton.
And Dilton was basically operating with impunity because Nash's injury and his emotional absence created this power vacuum at the top.
And the abuses are shocking. They demonstrate a fundamental failure of public trust. We have to get into the specific examples.
Please.
First, Dilton was caught tripping and cuffing a man who owed him $20.
Yeah.
Just a straight-up abuse of police power for personal, petty debt collections.
It's unbelievable.
But the second example is much more insidious. He used probable cause, a 3-year-old wanted poster, as a pretext to pull over and remove a black aerospace engineer and his civil rights attorney wife from their high-end Mercedes.
All for just speeding.
Right. And what makes it so clearly malicious is the context. Dilton blatantly ignored his own drinking buddy, a guy named Titus, who was speeding 20 miles per hour faster in a pickup truck right next to them.
So this isn't poor judgment. This is discriminatory, targeted enforcement based on bias and personal vendettas.
Nash realizes his absence, his emotional withdrawal, has had catastrophic consequences for the town's safety and their trust in the police.
And he finally acts decisively. He confronts Dilton, listing the violations in excruciating detail, and he notes the glint of mean in Dilton's eyes.
That realization that this officer enjoys the power imbalance.
And Nash fires him immediately. This act is just a monumental step in Nash's personal recovery.
It is. It's him choosing duty over self-pity. He recognizes that healing isn't just about his shoulder. It's about stopping the abuse of power that his pain allowed to happen.
And the source notes that Mayor Swanson supports his move, emphasizing the need for department reform, like implementing de-escalation and diversity training.
It's a recognition that the problems in the police force went way beyond just one rogue officer. Nash's crisis forced a necessary and painful departmental reckoning.
The moment of reckoning between Nash and Lena, it feels inevitable at this point.
Completely. And when Nash discovers Lena's repeated clandestine visits to Tina Witt in her pursuit of Duncan Hugo over the stolen car, that fragile line between personal vulnerability and professional secrets it collapses.
For Nash, this isn't just a conflict of interest. It is a direct violation of the trust he's been so desperately, clinging to.
He feels utterly betrayed. He views her actions as her having used me being vulnerable against me just to get access to him and his case files.
And this feeling of betrayal, it triggers an explosive confrontation. It's fueled by his latent rage and his still fresh trauma from the shooting.
He loses control. It's a direct echo of the panic attacks he's been fighting. He pulls out a chair, forces her to sit, and delivers a threat that is wildly unprofessional but intensely personal.
He threatens to haul her down to the station and put her in a cell in nothing but that bath towel for the rest of the night if she doesn't confess.
His rage isn't just about the case. It's about the violation of trust in his fragile post-trauma life, which has been defined by his lack of control. He feels manipulated at the exact moment he needs certainty.
But Lena, the expert operative, she defends herself by arguing the semantics of honesty.
She does. She insists she didn't lie. I omitted part of the truth, which is a classic operative line.
It is, and she correctly points out that she never actually pumped him for confidential information and that she was in town before the shooting, making her mission independent of his personal crisis.
Her final defense is this powerful philosophical challenge to Nash's whole black and white world. She insists he just refuses to acknowledge that there's a whole world out there beyond the black and white.
She's forcing him to accept that motivations can be complex and that her mission, while secretive, wasn't malicious toward him personally.
But the underlying, undeniable current through this entire conflict is the explosive attraction between them.
Oh, absolutely. The source material makes a point of noting that their fights almost always lead immediately to intense, almost violent physical intimacy.
Grabbing wrists, being flush against the wall. Lena even notes her heart rate spiking. Her PVCs are acting up under the stress of their proximity and tension.
Their need for each other is just fighting their deep-seated professional distrust. They use anger and confrontation as a mask for the intense emotional safety they're starting to find together.
The physical fights become these proxies for their inability to verbally articulate their commitment.
But then Lena, who now understands the gravity of the threat, with Dilton's corruption and Anthony Hugo's reach becoming clear, she realizes that going solo is no longer a sustainable option.
This is her moment of growth. It's her overcoming her trauma-based avoidance of relying on other people.
She initiates the formation of the gang's All Here team,
which is a huge shift in her identity. She gathers Nash, Knox, Lucian, Nolan, Naomi, Sloan, and the indispensable Mrs. Tweedy for a strategy session in Nash's cluttered apartment.
a total departure from standard police protocol.
Completely. And Lena's advocacy for collaboration is profound. She argues for open communication because she says, the more heads we can put together on this, the more eyes and ears we have around town, the better prepared we'll be.
She's recognizing that the collective strength of this messy, loving, small-town support system is superior to the cold efficiency of a private investigator.
And the team gains immediate, unexpected strength. Nolan Graham, the smug U.S. Marshal, quits his job.
He just walks away from it.
Cites burnout, bad backs from roach motels, says he's tired of waiting to get drunk or fed up enough to send his resignation. So he joins the team, offering his specialized federal knowledge without all the bureaucracy.
And Mrs. Tweedy, of course, brings the essential bourbon and becomes their first official spy, using local gossip as her cover.
It's the perfect illustration of how unconventional methods become necessary when the official system is compromised.
With the team assembled and the threat level confirmed, Nash proposes the high-risk bait plan.
He wants to dangle himself to draw Hugo out. It's an act of self-sacrifice that really shows he's found his professional identity again, outside just being an injured guy.
But this vulnerability immediately triggers his protective instincts for Lena.
He coerces her into an extended sleepover in his apartment, using the guise of federal protection, with Nolan acting as the official cover.
But it's not just about sex, it's about ensuring she is safe and contained.
He's very explicit. He cuts through all the emotional fog and just says, I need you to stay with me until we catch Hugo.
And Lena agrees, but always needing to exert some measure of control, she lays down the classic rules.
No sex or running of any bases, and absolutely pointedly, she will not cook.
And the rules, as we suspected, are immediately challenged by the power of their proximity.
During their first official sleepover, Nash asks her to slow dance. He pulls her close because he says, I like being close to you even when we have all our clothes on.
That is the definitive shift. It moves from that physical, adrenaline-fueled contact to real emotional intimacy and safety.
Nash has moved past his fear of vulnerability, and Lena has momentarily suspended her fear of the potential prison of commitment.
The chaos of the investigation has literally forced them into stability. Okay, so the final sequence. It relies entirely on the convergence of all these tiny overlooked details that have been woven throughout the whole narrative.
It really does. Lena, ever the expert investigator, is captured. She's taken by Serial Aisle Guy, one of Hugo's men, in a grocery store parking lot.
But she doesn't go down without this crucial moment of insight. Right before she's grabbed, she realizes the central, almost ridiculous clue.
Hugo's obsession with sun-kissed fruit gems candy.
Vale, Nash's niece, had mentioned his obsession with them earlier, and Lena realizes Serial Aisle Guy was the one buying the candy in bulk, the professional criminal betrayed by his snack preferences.
It's perfect. So she's put in the trunk of a tan 2020 Ford Fusion and taken to Hugo's makeshift HQ, which is an old horse barn.
And inside that barn, the major, terrifying truth is finally revealed.
Doken Hugo is there. But more shockingly, Dilton, the officer Nash just fired, is there working with Hugo. The corruption ran right to the heart of the department.
And the full, locked-away truth of Nash's trauma is just exposed in a shouting match between the two criminals.
Hugo yells at Dilton, "At least I had the balls to pull the trigger."
And that single overheard line confirms the entire suppressed memory. Dilton was the one who shot Nash.
The attempted killer was internal. The man Nash fired for abusing citizens was also the one who almost killed him.
So that's the source of the sizzle and crunch. That sound Nash couldn't place.
It had to be. The sound of the bullet, maybe the shell casing, or the gun itself. Something his mind couldn't accept because the shooter was a trusted colleague.
And even under this immense duress, Lena maintains her investigator's focus. It's incredible.
She notices Hugo isn't just yelling at a television screen. He's playing Dragon Dungeon Quest online.
And she correctly deduces she can connect to the Wi-Fi using the gaming platform to communicate her location or send a warning.
This detail is brilliant because it contradicts Nash's earlier incomplete intelligence. He thought Hugo's console was shot to hell.
But Lena correctly deduces he was communicating online with other players, which provides this literal, albeit fragmented, lifeline back to the outside world.
Meanwhile, the assault team is closing in, but Nash gets this terrifying phone call. Liza J., one of Hugo's associates, answers Lena's phone.
And delivers the chilling message. He got her, Nash. He took her. Followed quickly by a fragmented, panicked voicemail from Lena herself.
She just whispers, "Tell Nash I love him. Break up."
That voicemail is the shattering catalyst for Nash. The emotional surge, the realization that he loves her and might lose her, it forces his final breakthrough.
In the chaos of the final assault, as Nash and Lena are hiding behind a tractor, she asks the crucial question, "You know about Dilton shooting him?"
And Nash confirms the emotional and psychological return to wholeness. He says, "Memory came back when I got your voicemail."
The combination of Lena's danger and Dilton's ultimate betrayal just shatters the mental block. The sizzle and crunch are finally explained, and Nash is whole and operational again.
The fight ends pretty quickly after that. Dilton, Hugo, and their associate Nikos are apprehended. Dilton is dead to rights on 3 cases now: attempted murder, corruption.
But in the absolute thick of the gunfight, with bullets flying and chaos everywhere, Nash, having just recovered his identity and memory, he prioritizes commitment over carnage.
He proposes marriage to Lena.
The ultimate adrenaline-fueled leap of faith.
And she accepts with her trademark lack of flowery sentiment. Ugh, fine. Yes.
It's not a romantic proposal in the traditional sense at all. It's an acceptance that the only stability they can find exists when they confront chaos together.
Their commitment is then immediately grounded in this redefinition of what it means to be a hero.
Yeah, Lena reminds Nash that his measure isn't saving everyone or being invulnerable. It's about sheer persistence.
She tells him, "On your darkest days, you drag yourself out of bed and you choose to go protect your town, your people. That's what a hero does, you idiot."
And Nash solidifies this commitment with a permanent mark, following a Morgan family tradition. He gets a tiny purple love bite as a souvenir from the fight,
And an angel wings tattoo on his ass.
the perfect symbol, a permanent sign of his willingness to be vulnerable, exposed, and all in. He's finally embracing a future beyond his trauma.
And the supporting cast, they all find their resolution too. Nolan Graham, the former smug marshal, is seen looking delusionally happy.
Having been poached by the private sector, it's suggested to be Lucian's influence, and he's talking to his wife on a gurney. Everyone, having faced these dark elements of crime and personal crisis, finds a path toward a healthier, more stable life. So what does this all mean for you, the learner? This deep dive into Operation Tiny Little Embers, it really confirms a universal truth in complex investigations. Resolving large-scale criminal operations often comes down to small, overlooked, and sometimes absurd details.
Absolutely. We saw how the entire criminal conspiracy unraveled thanks to Piper's wet rescue creating local gossip, Hugo's fixation on sun-kissed fruit gems revealing his location, and Lena's astute deduction about a Dragon Dungeon Quest username providing a digital lifeline. It just reinforces that the mundane is often the key to unlocking the monumental.
And crucially, this investigation served as a profound and, frankly, painful catalyst for personal growth for both of our lead characters. It forced Nash to confront his numbness, to overcome his memory block, and to shed his fear of commitment.
He had to recognize his identity wasn't just being the chief, but being a partner.
And at the same time, it forced Lena to trust others with her safety, her feelings, and her deepest fear. She stopped viewing relationships as that potential prison built by her past trauma and accepted the ultimate vulnerability of commitment.
The interplay of the personal and professional, well, it proved to be non-existent for Nash. His most intimate connections, Lena, his brother Knox, the unconventional gang, they provided the strength and information he needed to survive his job.
He had to accept that hiding and trying to heal alone was just a path to failure.
This brings us back to Lena's mother's advice, which guided Lena's reluctant acceptance of love. The only way you're going to know if he's the one is if you treat him like he's the one.
And this raises an important, provocative question for you to consider.
Considering the high risks they took and the secrets they revealed, what makes one omission of the truth like Lena's reason for being a knock-em-out forgivable, while another, like Dilton's betrayal and subsequent attempt on Nash's life, is viewed as an act of fundamental, irredeemable corruption?
And finally, when you look at how Nash and Lena operated, how far must two people be pushed into utter chaos? A life-altering panic attack, a proposal during a gunfight, before they realize that the stability they crave is found only in the commitment they make to each other.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Operation Tiny Little Embers.